left, we have the Samsung S95C. To the right, we have the Samsung S95B. As you can clearly see in this region over here, there's a lot more warmth and the colors just make more sense, and it's also brighter right here. This is kind of in line with what I thought would happen, where they take something away from us and just sell it to us again, and I'm kind of seeing that on this TV. Now, it's not to say that there aren't some benefits. I am seeing, like in the armor over here, there are better, I guess, highlight mapping features on the new TV, but I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like enough to justify the price difference, if I'm being completely transparent, given that the Samsung S95B has two things going for it. One, I've already made really killer settings for it, and two, it is cheaper by like a lot. The 55-inch over here is going for $1270 something if you find it on Amazon. This over here is going for over $2,500. That's a big markup. And we have to consider it's not really providing that much better of an image. Now, both TVs have also been calibrated by yours truly, which then kind of leads the question, which one is better? Well, that's what this video is for, so smack a like, subscribe, and join this journey. If you want settings for both TVs, make sure you join and become a member by hitting that join button. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So looking at this image, we can see a few things happening. I noticed the more cinematic looking image occur on the Samsung S95B to the right. I'm noticing that there's a lot more happening in terms of retention of detail, where this is favoring more of a contrasty look, and that kind of hurts the image a little bit in my personal opinion. I'm also noticing a bit more in the way of black crush to the left on the Samsung S95C versus to the right on the Samsung S95B, and that kind of hurts it again for the darkroom environment. So as we look at this image, we can see more of what I was talking about. There is a lot more, I would say, refinement as far as the shades in the sky in this image. So you can see here, it's just a more realistic shade of blue. I'm also really digging what's happening with the colors here, the warmth here and the armor. The cinematic warmth in the background really makes the scene feel more accurate and realistic than what we have to the left on the Samsung S95C. Again, not to say that the S95C is bad, it's equivalent as far as picture offering in terms of color vibrancy, and the brightness is a little bit higher in this scene now than it is on the Samsung S95B. Now, I do want to give a special note. Just because it's a little bit brighter, that doesn't mean that it's better, because it's only brighter in the global aspects. And in English, that means the overall picture is just brighter in terms of this particular scene, but it's not intelligently putting highlights where they belong. And I think when you get to scenes like this, that's where you're going to have a problem. There's also a dimming issue that I'd like to show you now. In movie mode, there's a dimming issue. If you're at 50 brightness, you're fine. If you're at 49 brightness, you're fine. If you're at 48 brightness, you're fine. It downgrades itself pretty appropriately. But if you go to 47, the drop in brightness from 48 to 47, these two are just day and night. As you can clearly see, it gets so much darker and dimmer. And that brightness just basically plummets to the equivalent of what I would believe to be 20. And this is a huge issue that I've noticed, particularly in movie mode. Now, I don't have this particular issue in dynamic mode and some of the other modes, but this is something to note for those who maybe like to use movie mode and, adjust your brightness per your ambient light. To the left, you're going to be seeing what it looks like on the S95C out of the box. This is basically what all the experts are ranting and raving about. Now, I don't think I have to tell you the image to the left is blown out and you're missing a lot of detail in the brightest areas of your screen, and it's really grainy. So let's say we want to go from dynamic mode, because nobody uses dynamic mode, it's torch mode, right? Let's go to standard. Standard is just as bad. It's really blue or overly cool in color temperature, and as a result, you're missing a lot of detail because of the classic Samsung clipping issues that tend to happen. So let's say that you don't want that either. Then you're going to go to eco mode. And eco mode, again, one of those default modes that the TV ships with, again, doesn't look fantastic. Now, I've gone ahead and changed the dynamics of this picture to look from a picture that looks like this to something that looks like this. And again, you can pick these settings up for $5. All you got to do is join, and I got them ready right now for you. So you don't have to pay a greedy calibrator $250 to $500 for anything. All you got to do is just join and I got you covered. And that's one of the awesome things that I love to do here in this community. Now, as you can clearly see, there's a massive difference from the day one firmware rocking the default settings versus my settings. It's not the same TV. And so when I do these comparisons, these are highly optimized, very calibrated displays. And again, they're calibrated to something called perceptual accuracy, not measurements, not test patterns and things like that. We calibrate to reference standard and then go beyond so that you can see a picture worth its salt and get what you paid for. If that sounds good to you, again, just hit join or reach out to me as to how you can join and I got you covered. But all that being said, it's important to note that you can notice some key differences here. First, the color white has been improved pretty significantly on the Samsung S95C. So it just appears a little bit more pure in nature, albeit it's not really beating out the Samsung S95B too much. And I say white because it just looks a little bit more white since it's targeting more of a cooler color temperature. That being said though, the practical lighting in the back is a bit brighter when we look at this area here. Just a little bit. But if you notice carefully, look at the color in the helmet here, and you'll be able to see what I see, how there's just so much more of a difference when we look over here, and it's maybe a little bit more cool, and you don't have as much cinematic color in the background like you do here. It's just that difference that makes movies more immersive or less immersive, depending on your personal preference. I, for one, am preferring the S95B for this, so to each their own, but hopefully you're able to see something in this example. So if we look at this example of General Grievous from Star Wars, you can clearly see that the S95C is brighter. However, in my personal feeling, it doesn't really seem to have the same level as cinematic intensity as the S95B in terms of the color. And the color for me, because it's not quite as bright, it doesn't really feel like it's being diluted as much. And that's odd because usually color volume unlocks just this whole different world, but it doesn't really feel like that on the S95C if I'm being honest. It feels more like it's just brighter and you have more impressive highlights, which yes, that adds something totally new to the experience of QD OLED, but at the same time, it's not really so much better to the point where I would say like run out and pay the massive difference between the two right now. Because if you pay attention carefully, the contrast is significantly better on the S95B. It's not trying to blast off the most incredible highlights and all that at the same time that, you know, you have something on the screen, but it is giving you a really beautiful image. So it's kind of like tomato tomato. Looking at an image like this, you can clearly see there's a huge difference in terms of color. Looking at the saber right here, the lightsaber. Yoda's green lightsaber just looks so much better here than it does over there on the S95C, where it just looks a little bit more pale by comparison. The same can be said about the cinematic color throw that we're seeing in Yoda's face here, where it's just so much more striking, where over here, it's a little bit more pale by example. Again, we can see the same thing with the ambient light on the floor, and over here, it looks a little bit not as great. And again, this is a theme that we're seeing over and over again. I mean, just look at the red from the lightsaber and you can get the idea very clearly. The S95C to the left absolutely bakes the Samsung S95B in terms of depth. Look at this image and you can see this vehicle so much clearer and so much more three-dimensional than you have on the S95B, where it's not as nice. And again, this is one of the big things that they did this year that really just grab you in and make you want to live in this world. And looking at all of the beautiful bright lights in the background, where on the S95B it's not quite as bright, you can clearly see that yes, this year it is brighter. Is it the 2000 nit that we were expecting? I'm going to go ahead and say no, but I am going to say that it is more than bright enough to impress you, even if it's a little bit over the S95B. So colors I'm noticing maybe not as great, but I am noticing that three-dimensional draw, and I'm sure that even in this video, you probably can see it too. Ultimately speaking though, when it comes to accuracy, the S95B is still taking the cake. Look at Mace Windu. He has the correct skin, and I think that is really huge because he has that like realistic warmth to brown skin that makes it brown, where on the S95C it's just a cooler picture. I don't know why Samsung believes that everybody likes a cooler picture. I think maybe it's because they've gotten away with it for so many years that they just do it. I mean, I know Sony is also doing it, and pretty much every TV you can buy ships with just the most disgusting cool color temperature, but it is something that is a massive problem because, as you can clearly see, skin tone accuracy falls off way too fast. And I think that's one of the unfortunate parts about this whole thing. Now again, it's not to say that the S95C is disgusting and it's a terrible picture. As I told you, it bakes the pants off of the S95B in certain examples with the depth. But as you're seeing here, like the lightsaber, Mace Windu looks more badass with the S95C. Looking at this image, Obi-Wan looks pretty incredible on the Samsung S95B, but the S95C in terms of depth and just really that brightness that draws you in is just more inviting. So the S95C is definitely going to take the edge here. And again, it's just undeniable that the S95C, when it comes to highlights overall or global brightness, is starting to trend more in the way of being brighter than the S95B. Again, this does trade back and forth depending on certain examples where the S95B can look better, especially when you have something like a lightsaber, for example. But at the end of the day, it really is going to change very much so depending on what you're seeing. But as a general rule, the S95C is definitely the brighter picture, but the S95B is producing the more pleasing colors, at least to my eye. In this example, the Samsung S95B is just slaughtering the S95C in terms of, again, color, accuracy, and again, it just feels more like you're looking at a Jedi on a modern display on the S95B to the right, and it does look a little bit more dated to the left on the Samsung S95C, if that even makes sense. Albeit the S95C is undeniably brighter in terms of that lightsaber glow, I'm still gravitating more to the Samsung S95B. Again, it's important to note that this is a Samsung S95B rocking day one firmware and not the neutered Samsung S95B experience that came later on. So again, this is a bit of a, I guess, unfair comparison, if you will, considering most other S95Bs probably won't have this experience, but it's important to see how much quotation mark better they made the S95C. And again, it's kind of what I thought it would be. It's the S95B 2.0. They took away brightness that they kind of are selling back at a later date. And they're doing it at the expense of color because, as you can clearly see, the color is not as great as what we have on the S95B. Scenes like this show exactly what I'm talking about. If we look at the Samsung S95B, the red is just popping so much harder. If we look at the Samsung S95C to the left, we're noticing that it's not really as nice. And as we look at it, we're clearly seeing that it has less color throw. And this is Samsung's direction as they listen to people like HDTV Test and all the other purists that say you're oversaturated. But that really is starting to affect their picture quality. As you can clearly see, you don't have the luminous glow that you have here. You have something far worse. I think this example is absolutely legendary as we see Wonder Woman here. We can clearly see her skin tone is just coming to life on the S95B and on the S95C. Again, just a cooler color temperature. Let's go to another example showing you almost the same exact thing. Scenes like this will show you why the blue and the overall brightness is a bit more of a detriment. See, when it's too bright, you start losing detail, and we're seeing that here. If you look carefully, we see more detail around the neckline and those ridges than we do over here where there's a general haze to it, because now what the TV is trying to do is it's effectively trying to illuminate these lightning bolt flashes, also keeping the character's contrast in line with the background. It has to stay in line with the foreground. That gives you the depth and dimensionality. However, when we go over here, it's more two-dimensional because now you don't have that same feeling of bokeh or background defocus or isolation of the subject from the background. Where here we have a clear isolation line from the background. This is where that extra brightness for the sake of brightness is destructive. You need everything tone mapped correctly on that lightning point, and that's just not happening here, where it's kind of out of control, creating a general haze to the image in comparison to a day one Samsung S95B rocking the day one firmware. In scenes like this, you can see Wonder Woman's skin tone get a lot more pale, and what this makes it feel like is pretty much the brightness ending up being a handicap. Also, I want you to notice the screen space reflections in the water. When you look at the water, you can clearly see the ambient light reflecting as it should correctly the correct colors. But if we look over here, that effect is lessened to a dramatic degree, almost immediately crushing down that experience. Also, there's not as much contrast as we see in the water. While these might seem like petty little details to pick out, like reflections in the water, this is going to make a dramatic impact on the perceived sharpness and contrast of the movie you are watching, in turn affecting your immersion. And again, the sharper lines that we can see around the edges of this body of water, where over here it's not really quite as nice. Again, this is the downside of having that extra brightness. This is one of the more intense scenes in the movie, and again, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Now, this is what I'm talking about, where yes, the Samsung S95B is not brighter than the Samsung S95C. However, it doesn't matter because they know where to put the highlights. If you're looking carefully, you're noticing the practical lighting all on her arm, all on her tiara, all of that is creating that contrast on the side of her face. You're seeing the proper lighting, which creates shape, dimension. We go over here, that stuff is falling to the wayside because they don't really care so much about giving you all of those things. Also, the general cinematic hue or look that the director was intending you to have, you're not having. You're not supposed to have one flat shade of blue. You're supposed to have variations in the color, in the effect, in the serene kind of moment that they're creating for you, where you're seeing, again, a lot more of the rainbow flares that happen in the movie that's going dropped on the S95C. Now, to be fair, this is in SDR. This entire comparison is for SDR, but it's important to note that most of the content you are going to be watching is likely going to be in SDR, which is why I reviewed this way. And again, when you look at the two side by side, you can clearly see both are great TVs for sure, absolutely, but there's just that extra kick coming through on the Samsung S95B. Now, I want to go ahead and also, for dramatic effect, show you again in real time that, again, this is with my setup, right? These are with my settings. If you were to do the default out of the box settings and you were to do something like dynamic mode, this is how big of a difference it would be and how bad it would be. Now you have no detail, and now this is what Samsung thinks you want to see. That looks like a freaking cartoon. It doesn't even look real at this point. Okay, let's go to something like standard mode. Okay, now we're in standard mode. Look at that. Every bit is bad. You don't have any of the cinematic colors. That's not director's intent, man. You know what I mean? And this is the kind of thing that gets really frustrating because they ship these modes saying, hey, we've thought about these things, but clearly they didn't because here you are looking at something that looks terrible, right? So let's go ahead and try again. Let's go, we don't want my settings. Let's go to filmmaker mode. This is the director's intent, right? Director's intent versus what I offer. Which one of these two images do you prefer? Do you prefer something that looks closer to a black and white image, or do you prefer something with color that has life where you can see all the various shades in color? Which one do you think is the true director's intent? Like, for argument's sake, which one would you rather look at? Would you rather look at the image to the left where it's pretty much washed out, or would you rather have color in this explosion in this dramatic scene? Take a look at this image of Gail as you see her to the left in filmmaker mode versus to the right on the Samsung S95B rocking my settings. There's a reason I say that I go beyond reference standards, and this is clearly it. See, they're really trying to claim that this is the director's intent. That pale, dead image that honestly doesn't give you much, versus what I create. Now again, just to reiterate, you do not, I repeat, do not have to pay somebody $250 to $500 because they claim they're a calibrator to do that to your TV, because they're all calibrating to what the computers tell them to do. And again, in filmmaker mode, as you can clearly see, we're in filmmaker mode. What happens when we go back to what I do? Well, bam, there you go. Now your television looks amazing again. It's a day and night difference, folks. Would you rather watch your TV looking like that? Or, again, for dramatic effect, because I really want to drive this home, would you rather watch your TV looking like this? And of course, because there are all kinds of eco features turned on filmmaker mode to get it down to the 100 nits that they want you to watch your TV at, it's just going to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And again, would you rather watch your TV like that, or would you want to watch your TV like that with some color in it? At this point, there's no denying that filmmaker mode is just not where it's at. I understand a lot of people will try to convince you otherwise because I guess they're capitalizing on the fact that most people don't really understand that this television is so far from where it really can be out of the box that it's not even funny. And, you know, I like to show you that you don't have to pay $500 to do it. So again, if you like that kind of thing, make sure you join where I turn your TV from this ugly filmmaker mode, as you can clearly see here, to what I did here in movie mode, where this TV now slaps so much harder, as you can clearly see. Now it actually has more depth and dimensionality in this image than even the Samsung S95B. Now again, I am more leaning towards the S95B in terms of color accuracy, as I've said throughout this whole thing, but there's no denying the fact that the proper settings also can help curve a lot of this in the right direction. So in summary, the Samsung S95B out of the box is not going to look incredible. It's likely going to have a dynamic look like this if you're in dynamic mode. If you go to standard mode, it's going to look like this. If you go to eco mode, which is usually how it will ship, this is what it's going to look like. If you join my membership, you can get that. And again, there's a reason I'm pushing my membership so hard. There's no secret. YouTube is a business, crowd and self-funded. That's how we stay alive here. So of course, for the price of a cup of coffee, I can hook you up and give you a picture that looks like this. A big difference from, again, another preset. We have the Cal Night, which looks like that. That's really dim and washed out. The same can be said about Cal Day, which ain't much better. And then last but not least, you've got Filmmaker mode, which is the calibrated mode that, oh, it's so reference accurate, everybody has to have it. Well, there you go. That's your Filmmaker mode. You tell me which one of those you'd rather watch TV on. But as that being said, I think, honestly, they are great TVs, but I will have to give the win for color accuracy to the Samsung S95B in terms of, I would say, reflection handling, and the 3D draw, that goes to the S95C. They're both good TVs and you win either way, but at this current point in time, as we are in spring 2023, particularly in April, I think you're better off with the S95B for now. I would wait until maybe November, Black Friday, to be able to snag yourself an S95C on sale once these S95Bs become obsolete. Because currently at its current price of like in the mid $1,200 range for a 55-inch, it's just a no-brainer truly. That being said, I got settings for both these TVs. I can hook you up. If you need help, let me know. I got you covered. And if you have questions, genuine questions about these things, ask me and I will give you an unbiased answer regardless. So hopefully this helps you guys out. By the way, this is what Filmmaker mode dims down to. So again, that ain't great. And as you can clearly see here, Filmmaker mode right here. And yeah, it looks like trash. But again, that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Number one brand in honesty. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.